Recession fears are looming large over the global economy. As per a survey conducted by KPMG between July and August of this year, 2 out of 3 CEOs in India are bracing for a recession in the next 12 months. However, 58% CEOs in India believe that the recession will be a short and mild one. 1 in every 2 CEOs say that they have a plan to deal with one. That's not all. CEOs in India are more confident about resilience of the global economy over the next 6 months compared with global CEOs. But that's not to say that CEOs in India are without their share of worries. Pandemic fatigue, inflation and anticipated recession. These are some of the key concerns inside boardrooms. Well, to take us through the key findings of the KPMG CEO survey, we're now joined by Yezdi Nagporewalla, CEO of KPMG India. Thanks very much, Yezdi, for joining us here on the show. First, it's very clear through what the survey is showing up that Indian CEOs are far more confident at this juncture than their global counterparts. But when we talk about fears of a recession, Indian CEOs are talking about a global recession, right? Not a domestic recession.
No, thank you, Shirin. Thank you for having me. So you're absolutely right. The recession that we are talking about is actually a global recession, and the consequential impact one would have on India as such. So the CEOs in India, while they have a plan and they are confident of the resilience of their companies, etc., the recession is a global one.
Yes, and that's that is the big question at this point in time. Is this going to be a short and mild recession? Is it going to be a long and protracted recession? But CEOs polled believe that it's going to be short and mild, Yezdi.
That's correct. So while globally you have a larger proportion of people that we interviewed in the survey believe that there will be a recession, in India, that proportion is smaller. It's about 2/3. Globally, it was 86%. And while there is consensus that this recession will be shorter and milder as such.
Well, that certainly is the hope at this point in time. Let's see if it pans out that way. But yes, the survey says that Indian CEOs, 55% of those polled believe that they do have a plan to deal with the recession, were it to pan out in the way that they expect it to. What does that plan include? I mean, balance sheets are definitely in much better shape than the last financial crisis that the world went through. But what else are they going to leverage? What do they have as tools in their arsenal to be able to ride out the storm?
So, Shirin, it's a bit of a wait and watch, if you like. So CEOs in India they recognize it and they are watching it as it advances. And some of the aspects of the plan, including some of the CEOs that I've interacted with, it's around talent technology, where you start looking at talent differently and spend time more on trainings, etc., so that you reap the results once you.
So are you in an obtuse way saying that we're going to see a decline in hiring, the kind of hiring numbers that we were expecting? Is that going to see a significant decline or a moderate decline based on the conversations that you're having?
So not immediately. It's not as if CEOs have actually started watching for the decline and actioning it, but they are watching it, and they're spending their focus on other aspects as such. But if things do move in a certain direction, CEOs will start executing the plan.
Okay. I'm curious, when you ask what is concerning Indian CEOs, number one on that list is pandemic fatigue. I'm curious as to why that seems to be the top risk that Indian CEOs are focused on.
So it's actually a pandemic fatigue coupled with the economic outlook, coupled with the kind of challenges CEOs are facing with these days. These are all unprecedented. Whether it's geopolitical aspects, whether it's inflation. India always had inflation, and now this is a global inflation phenomenon as such. The way talent is evolving, the hybrid model, etc., or the amount of focus on technology. These are all new challenges or opportunities as such, which is combining into fatigue as such. But one thing to note is CEOs are also watching their spend on ESG in light of the recession. And while it's all short term and they are refocusing on aspects of creating frameworks and getting their data sorted, which will help them in the medium term. But they are watching spends on ESG.
When you say watching spends on ESG, are you saying that the expected spends are likely to be put on hold, or are they likely to be moderated in comparison to what the earlier estimation was?
So I'd expect it to be moderated. I'd expect it to be refocused as such. But again, this is all very, very short term, and it will bounce back. The overall commitment of the industry and its leaders towards ESG, recognizing its benefits and the imperatives, that stays. So I don't see a situation where that will get impacted.
You know, since we're talking about reprioritization of spends, what about, adding capacity, expansion plans? What's the sense that you get on both those at this point in time? Is that likely to be put in pause mode, or are they yet to take a call on that and they're still waiting to see how the global environment turns?
So I think they're waiting to see how things pan out. As of now, the CEOs that we interviewed, they've not gone and revisited their budgets or their expense budgets as such. But they are watching and they are planning. And they'll start executing as we go along. You know,
we were just talking to FMCG players, and they were talking about how inflation is certainly biting the rural economy, rural parts of the country, where the impact is being felt much harder than urban pockets. And inflation clearly is one of the risks that Indian CEOs are focused on. How challenging is the inflation and the rate scenario? We are seeing rates move up globally and here in India as well. Both the mix, how worried are CEOs about that?
So CEOs see this as precarious, if you like, especially for industry which is dependent on the global industry, or industry which is or sectors which are dependent on the currency. So currency fluctuations impact their business and things like that. So you are right. CEOs are watching those pieces, especially where you've got cross-country dependence.
Yep, there is caution, but it certainly is more optimistic when you compare sentiment in India versus sentiment globally at this point in time. That is the big takeaway from the KPMG CEO survey. They have, of course, polled Indian CEOs and they polled global CEOs as well. And, one is not surprised with that, because what we are seeing across the globe at this point in time is inflation at multi-decadal highs, interest rates moving higher, and growth slowing down. In India so far, as you pointed out, yes, we have dealt with high inflation. So this is not significantly higher than what we're used to. And of course, we're not immune to the global environment, but still holding much better in comparison to what's happening in the rest of the world today on the back of domestic demand, which is still holding. As always, a pleasure, Yezdi. Thanks very much for joining us here to take us through the findings of the KPMG India CEO survey. And that's it then on this edition of Business 360. Thanks very much for watching. Stay tuned to CNBC-TV18. The news continues.